Aight. This happened this most recent August. Second weirdest thing I've ever seen in this state. Easily the most unsettling. Get 3 days free from doing 24/7 grandpa care for 2 months. Get 2 friends to go in a mountains with me. Leave Friday night in a truck pulling a trailer with 2 4-wheelers. Light finally fades about 10 p.m. mid-August in Alaska. Take it easy on speed because big old diesel. Get to the target highway at about midnight. Pavement ends at mile 21-ish. Everything to now has been pretty normal. A couple miles in road, turns left with a small pull-off on the right side. Little Subaru parked there, facing onto road. LED light bar at face level.png. There's someone leaning on the hood, watching us as we drive by. Tired by this point, not really concerned. Figure it's someone waiting for their hunting buddy. It's caribou season, keep going. This highway is real rough in the fall. It's gravel and the heavy fall rains, combined with all the fall time hunting and camping, traffic tears it up. Going 30 miles per hour if I'm lucky, truck, trailer, and teeth all going daka 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 from washboards. Nice bright full moon, can miss the worst spots. Get half-mile down, straight stretch about halfway. Lights in rear view mirror. Fucking bright as fuck light bar again. This haulin' ass. 50 to 60 miles or more. One friend is zonked in the back and the other one is spaced out. Point the light bar car out to him. He watches them in the side mirror. Doesn't seem too unsettled. Car's maybe 200 feet back when I finally pull onto the trailhead. Car catches up 10 seconds later. Slows down to 5 miles going by, obviously checking us out. Hecklersraised.tiff. Park the truck, watch them drive down the highway for a bit. Let a deep breath. Look at the left at the other corner of the parking area. There's a SUV parked there, NBD. This is where it gets way out of whack. Wake up the other friend, kill the engine, hop out. Instantly gut assessment, shit's fucked. We're being hunted. Time to go. My response to the novel situation? Hey, there's something written on that SUV. Shine my flashlight on it. Moloch, written in the dust on the back window since it was parked. Oh fuck what. Friends are stretching legs. One has his AR out. They're both too quiet. Check out SUV. Engine still warm. Parked within a few hours. Only front passenger's door is locked. Shoes/sandals and shorts. Comfy driving wear on front seats. Full packs and compound bow in back. Full cooler, tent. Everything is untouched. 6-month expired. Youth group sticker on hood. Empty coffee hut coffees. Looks like a young couple out to camp. Friends are checking out this SUV. We're all independently reached 10 out of 10 maximum alert. Look around the whole area. Nobody is there. No fresh tracks except in parking area itself. Another pair of cars with LED light bars go by hauling maximum ass. We keep rifles on arm from cover as they go by. Give in to gut feeling, leave. Camp area 30 miles away on different highway. Come back in the morning. SUV still there, untouched. Still no sign of anybody ahead. Terrible gut feeling gone. Take the 4-wheeler and go 8 miles back in the mountains. Have a good time camping. Get bullied by a caribou. Come back in the next day, nobody was out there. Great lines of sight and nowhere to hide. SUV untouched. Food in the back is starting to go off. Get back in town. Call SUV into troopers. Dispatch goes, yeah, that's sketchy as fuck. I'll send someone out. Call back 2 weeks later to see what came of it. No record of having ever called it in, but they have every other call I've made. Sorry, Kay. Some stories don't have a good ending. I'm convinced we're getting checked out, and the only reason they let us be was because we had our ARs propped up on the seats and very visible. I have never found any explanation for what I saw out there. All I know is that gut feeling I got when I got out of the truck was the spookiest thing I ever felt, and all three of us felt it independently. There's some fucked up shit going on out there, I'm convinced. Be living in a house with some other dudes, basically nowhere, outside of this city, is just trees. Particularly harsh winter. This night isn't so bad, power goes out. Are you afraid of the dark? Nickelodeon? Look outside of enclosed porch to see if I'm the only one. The whole area is out. I forgot to mention that I'm a bit of a photography nerd. That comes into play here. Well, there is nothing to do here. Think to myself that I never have seen such a mass powerage like this before. This might be a cool time to do a little bit of photography. Step outdoor. Feeling more anxious than usual. Just calm down, dude. Don't let this get the best of you. Continue on and take some cool photographs of the car, light trails. Also make a light penis. Lol. Can't shake the feeling that something has been following me. Getting really nervous. It's too windy to listen around me. Let's call it a night. Head back to house. Just one more picture.exf. Take picture of the house I live in. Feeling really on edge, almost panicky. What the fuck is going on? I never let myself get this bad. Really feel like I'm not the only one out here. Inside, taking off boots and snow gear next to door. All of a sudden, something slams into the door. I shit myself right there, lock the door, and get back in my room. Lock myself in there, calm down enough to sleep. Next day, I go through my pics. Light penis? Get to the pic of my house. Shit, this picture is fucking creepy as hell. Can't believe my house looks like such a nightmare. Wait a second. Shadows don't look right. Look closer. Fucking got goosebumps writing this shit. Sorry for the length. What the fuck is that? I see what looks like some guy with a pig head staring right the fuck at me. I lose it. Ever since then, I've been hearing banging around my house. Like a couple times a week. Whatever the fuck that thing is, it wants in. I'm losing sleep over this. Pic related is the picture that I took. I've posted this one a couple times before. Might take 2 posts. Be camping with friends in the woods. 3 guys and 2 girls. We're planning on camping next to a big lake that's about 7 miles away from the parking lot. Stop just for lunch and snacks. We're all alone the whole time, which is normal because it's mid-November and it's a pretty isolated area. Get to the lake at 7ish. It's pretty dark, but managed to get the tents done fairly quickly. Munching on some candies when one of the girls points at the other side of the lake. Is that a person? I can't see it at first, but yeah, there's someone in a red trench coat walking towards us. No flashlight, no backpack. Mind you, it's about 9 p.m. mid-November. It's cold and dark. We figure it's a person just because of the moon. Gets closer. It's actually a girl in her mid-20s. Pretty attractive. Acts normal. Tell her to spend some time with us. Again, normal girl acting normal. The only unusual thing about her is how she arrived to our camp. I would have sworn she was hitting on me. Anyways, we talk for a while, smoke, and I have a few beers, but at 1 a.m. or so she says she's leaving. What the fuck are you talking about, bitch? You can't leave in the dark in the middle of the buttfuck nowhere? She's convinced she's leaving. We lend her one of our flashlights and a Snickers bar, important later. Leaves, but doesn't use the flashlight. We can't see any lights coming from where she walked towards. We all feel guilty. Shouldn't have let her go. The girl keeps saying there's nothing we could do to make her stay. Attempt to call the police, but no signal. Decide to go to sleep and hope for the best for her. Next day, clean up our shit, make breakfast, and start heading back. Nothing weird on the way back. Discuss about the girl from time to time, but that's it. We're all worried and feel guilty. About 1 hour before arriving to the parking lot. Hey, is that her? A red trench coat between the trees. Thank goodness she didn't get lost. As we approach her, we realize it's not her. It's just her trench coat hanging from a tree branch. Fear goes to 1,000. What if she was kidnapped? What if she's dead? Start looking around the tree where the coat is hanging from to see if we can find anything else. We find what we assume is her t-shirt neatly folded on a rock, what we assume are bird bones and half-eaten Snicker bar. No trace of her though. We start theorizing, but we all agree we should get back and call the police. Go back to the car. We're all alone the whole time. No more people or cars. Contact the police. Tell them everything and spend the afternoon at a local bar talking about possible theories and outcomes, and waiting just in case the police need us. They tell us they'll let us know if they need anything, and we go back home. To this day, we have no idea what happened. As I said, we have a lot of theories, but none checks all the clues and weird stuff. Not really scary, but the whole ordeal has a very eerie feel to us. Canada Anon. Live in northern Ontario and came across tons of long stretches of road with pretty much no one on them. Very nice in the day, but spooky at night. Here's my story. Be me, driving back from work late at night, maybe 1 a.m. Long country road to get back into town. Few houses dot it, but pretty much completely empty. Always drive by this one house on the road that is abandoned. Textbook spooky boarded up windows and doors. About to come up by the house while I'm driving, usually stare at the house as I pass by, but distracted by music and not paying attention, suddenly see something on the road, freak out and swerve around it. Almost get in the ditch, stop my car a little further ahead to look back. Freak that I may have hit an animal or something. See a dude in the center of the road, taking some long but flat thing off the road. See metal glint from my lights. It's some sort of rug or flooring, but it's got something sharp embedded in it, like glass or nails. Imagine one of those police strips to pop tires, but homemade, and you get the idea. Guy hurries back into the house. I drive off. Next few days, heard from my buddy that the police busted some squatters camping out in the abandoned house outside of town. My face went, I almost got ghetto ambushed by squatters. A friend of my dad's would babysit me from time to time. When I was little, Mom wasn't in the picture, and he used to tell a story to me that scares the absolute shit out of me to this day. Dad's friend, I'll call him Bob, is driving a rig out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, Oregon. Has to make the delivery by the following morning, so he decides to just drive through the night. It's like 1 in the morning, no one else is out on the roads. Hasn't seen another car in probably 100 miles. He is literally in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly the whole entire sky lights up. Instantly, like daylight. Bob fucking slams on the brakes, has no idea what the hell is going on. Everything stays lit up for a good solid 10 seconds. He can see everything. Whatever's happening, it's not lightning. It doesn't stop or flicker at all. Bob hunkers down, anticipating imminent nuclear devastation. Suddenly, sky just goes dark again. No sound, no blast wave. He sits there in the middle of the road waiting for almost 5 minutes, then decides to keep going. Figures it was a meteor or something. Goes about 2 miles up the road and sees a car with its flashers on. Stopped in the middle of the road. Stops a good distance away from it. There's not enough room to get around it. Front end of the car is crumpled in like it was hit or something. Bob figures they probably hit a deer that got spooked. Whenever the meteor went over and ran into the road, he gets out of the cab and goes to see if the driver's okay. Driver is sitting on the ground by the driver's side door, has his knees up and is resting his head on his arms. "Hey buddy, you okay?" Bob calls out. He stops about 10 feet away for seemingly no reason. Something about the whole situation feels weird. Bob is one of those guys that always listens to his gut, so he stays put. "God, my head hurts, it's killing me," the guy says, but he doesn't lift his head, so it's so muffled. "Did you hit a deer?" Bob asks. He's getting more and more uneasy. Something's wrong. but he still can't figure out what exactly it is. The guy says he thinks he might have hurt his head, asks Bob to help him. Bob takes a step forward, but his instincts are going apeshit. He looks at everything again. That's when he notices it. The fucking car is all wrong. It looks like what someone thinks a car looks like. It has all the right pieces, but there's nothing extra, if that makes sense. Bob says it looked like a cheap Hot Wheels knockoff. It just looked wonky and wrong. He looks around at the back of the car and realizes that not only is there no license plate, there's not even a trunk. It's just one solid piece of material with taillights put in it. There's no manufacturer or model name. Bob knows cars, and this thing is nothing he's ever seen before. From where he's standing, he can see there's no tailpipe or even hubcaps. It's just the shape of a car. He starts to back up, and the guy asks him for help again. Bob tells him he can't help him and that he'll call a tow truck when he gets to the next town. The guy lifts his head and looks at Bob. Tells him he thinks he might have a concussion. Something is really, really wrong with the guy's face, but again, it takes a second for Bob to figure it out. The next part is exactly how Bob described it. Everything on the man's face was where it should have been in their normal positions. He looked totally normal, except for the fact that his eyes and mouth were upside down. Bob goes apeshit and sprints back to his rig, climbs in and locks the door just in time for the man to slam into the door behind him. How the fuck did he get there so fast? He knocks on the glass and smiles at Bob, but because his mouth is upside down, it looks like he's screaming. Tells Bob to open the door so he can come in. Bob fucking floors it. Doesn't care if he hits the guy or not. His truck easily pushes the car out of the way. Whatever it is, its lights and it make no sound when he hits it. Unfortunately, it's an anticlimactic ending. Bob got where he was going fine, with no other problems. My dad knows the story, but I don't think he believes it. But Bob tells it to everyone he meets, so he obviously does. He absolutely adamant about the guy being an alien. Years later, I heard about that Thatcher effect and nearly had a fucking heart attack when I saw it. I showed one of the pictures to Bob and he wouldn't even look at it. He says it's exactly what the guy looked like. Pic very much related. In 2009, an amateur video artist studying in the UK uploaded a video onto YouTube and other sites of a recent piece he did. After many reports and complaints, the video was removed from many sites. The piece allegedly begins with a shot of a foggy green field, some saying located in Ireland. Only sound that can be heard is a light hissing and some muffled speaking. The camera slowly starts zooming in on a white spot in the shot. After several tedious minutes, people describe a scene involving an albino deer. A close-up shot of her eyes suddenly appears to viewers, showing some sort of infection or sign of blindness with them. The following shot then shows the deer staring at a vanity mirror for about a minute. After this, things start to become stranger. The deer in the reflection starts moving in dissonance with the real one. Zooming in, the camera focuses on the deer in the reflection, showing it moving about in a frightening manner. People have often described the moments as unnatural and physically grotesque, as though someone was molding her like a piece of clay. As these frightening movements continue, a shot of the real deer is shown again. This time, however, she's laying on the ground, slightly at peace. The shot goes on for approximately 2 minutes, still showing the grotesque gestures of the reflection, which is slowly starting to darken. The deer laying down then starts to excrete a black fluid from under her tail, suggesting a birth to occur. The tar-like substance continues to seep out from her onto the ground. After this point, many people stop to report the video. Some accounts vary, but many describe a scene where a stillborn human child comes out of the lying deer covered in something like tar. Some have claimed it's some made-up hybrid between human and animal. the artist sewed together or did in post-production. After a close-up of the hybrid's face is shown, the mirror is shown to be broken. Within an empty field, black and white stock footage of crowd applauding is shown in slow motion, and then the film ends with about 5 minutes of blackness and mumbles/murmurs slowly fading in volume. Many people say the video can no longer be found online, whilst others say that the audio goes around file sharing programs like SoulSeek and BitTorrent. Some even say they have attained the video itself through such manners. Screenshots of it unknowingly pop up on image boards and sites such as Tumblr, but the video itself has been hardly seen outside of its initial debut. A year later, the artist posted another YouTube video, but this time it was just 5 minutes of black screen and silence. However, the description contained a link to a webcam site. Viewers describe only seeing a couple of dangling pale feet, slightly rotating above a knocked-over chair. My cousin in the Canadian Army told me this story. Be stationed at the military base in Pertawawa, at the end of civilization, surrounded by Algonquin Park. The park's a huge, rocky, inhospitable forest taking up massive space in northern Ontario. Frequents a Tim Horton near the base, often using the free Wi-Fi to game on his laptop. Some military intelligence officer from Ottawa does this too, and they got to know each other. The intelligence officer tells my cousin he's been busy and asks if he could do a basic part of the job for him. He hands him a list of addresses for homes in the area. He has to drive to each place and basically do a checkup. These were mostly veterans living alone or military families. If he knocks and no one answers, he has to try and open the door. If it's open, he has to go inside and look around, see if they killed themselves. He would have to visit each house twice over the month. There are about 20 addresses. The first couple addresses, he says, were largely home near the town, all occupied. The residents seemed spooked. The military were visiting them and acted hostile towards him. The rest of the addresses were in rural areas near Algonquin Park, basically run-down cottages, besides one house that had some active military guys renting it. The rest were uninhabited. The last place on list was actually inside Algonquin Park, and although he could reach them by car, they were basically abandoned cabins that seemed to be left for hikers. He looked around to see if anyone was using it, but found nothing, except for a security camera centered on the front door. A week later, he would do the checks again and notice something strange. Each house actually had security cameras, very obviously set up on the front yards of the houses. When he got to the cottages, this time the military guys were gone, but he noticed again a security camera on the site. While driving into Algonquin Park, he says he felt like he was being watched, but got the checks done. He then sent the list to the officer and never hears back from him. Curious, he asks one of the locals at the base about this. Local tells him there are uncontacted tribes deep in the forest who are known to kidnap old people from their cottages. Says the Chalk River and nuclear disaster in the 50s had an effect on them, and ever since the military has been trying to contain them. Says he saw him before while on his ruck marches, and described them as a very dark looking, like an Aboriginal Australian, but tall and skinny with long arms and hair. A couple months later, my cousin spots one of the guys who was renting the cottage. He says that it was actually the same day he visited that one of his friends noticed something standing tall near the trees in their backyard, directly connected to the park. And when they looked at where it was standing, a day later saw missing branches and a very large hole leading to the cottage. This was about the same time someone went missing and was found in the river. Posted this one in a creepy thread ages ago. Stories from an ex-military guy I knew from the pub. Pilot flying up in the Northern Territory. Radio into the airstrip. He knows the couple that run it. Says he'll be there in 4 hours. Will radio when he's near the airstrip. Gets close to airstrip, radios the couple in. No reply. Circles and tries again, still no reply. Goes to airstrip on the next town over. Tells the lady working there the couple never picked up their radio. They call the police. Police come around to them. They all travel to the airstrip the couple owned. Get there about 2 or 3 a.m. The lights in the house are off, but the spotlights are on. Some were shining off into the hill. They walk around the side of the house where the dogs are kept. 2 things they notice right away. The dogs are dead, but there was no sign of physical harm on them. They all had looks of terror on their face. It appears they were literally scared to death. Second thing was the side of the house was riddled with bullet holes, but they were firing from the inside out. They go into the house to find the couple dead on the ground, with the man's AR-15 in his hand. They had a look of fear and shock on their faces, same as the dogs, and they were said to have died the same way as the dogs. Police radio it in. At dawn, most of the other police and paramedics get there, and so do some lads from the Air Force. They saw them talking to the police, then came over to the locals and told them to fuck off out of here and don't tell anyone what they saw or may have heard. The guy who told the lad from the pub I go to was in the USAF and was involved with the Project Blue Book and other UFO-related business. He told him strange lights and other strange events had went down in the area the night of the incident. Hiking in the Smoky Mountains. Slept in one day, decided to hike at night to make up time. Check my trail guidebook. The next mountain I start ascending is a Cherokee holy site. The further I go up the mountains, a feeling of existential sorrow and dread compound over me. Towards the top, the sense of being watched and followed and being in a place I shouldn't be is overwhelming. I reach the top, I can't stand it anymore. I stop to take a break and shine my flashlight around. Suddenly, realize without the sound of me walking, it's dead quiet, whereas before I heard all sorts of bugs and critters. Hear a high-pitched whimpering. Shine my light towards it. There's a small childlike figure kneeling in the woods. It looks up. It has the face of a bird. I take off running down the peak, hearing the whimpering all the way down. Get to the bottom, don't hear sound anymore. Never go walking in the woods at night again. Creepy road experiences. Be me tonight, sitting in passenger seat of a car with some friends driving on the way back from a road trip. Be on freeway passing a college town in a desolate foothills of southeastern Idaho. About midnight and most of them are asleep. Be staring out the window and listening to music. Getting mighty sleepy. Notice something on the side of the other lane that seems off. On side of the road there's a sharp hill with a street lamp. Sees a black cloaked figure right there facing away from the road and towards a small silo on the top of the hill. Sit up straight in my seat suddenly and watches it before it passes. The figure is just standing there. The street lamp is casting the figure's shadow against the grass on the hill. It is definitely a person. Street lamp above is bright enough to show the drapiness of its clothes. Drapiness is a word. It seems to have a black cloak or veil draped over its head that reaches all the way down to the ground. The person has their back turned and doesn't move at all. Only get to see it for a few seconds before our car passes it. What the fuck was that person doing? Wide awake and spooked the rest of the ride home. I doubt it was a statue or a leftover Halloween decoration, because it was such an unappealing and odd position to put one. Cult member? Ghost? Alright, so I was at a Rally for Life event. My mom is on the planning team and she called me over to help her. And we had been completely washed out by a bunch of sudden rain. We packed up what we could and waited out the rain so that we could finish closing up the place. The rain eventually subsided and we started collecting trash and such. I took one of the golf carts to drive a load of trash to the dumpster back behind some buildings. I threw everything away, but just before I got back into the golf cart, I felt a very, very powerful presence. I turned around and saw whatever the fuck it was. I'm not even sure what to call it. It was human-shaped, but with pointed arms and legs and jet black skin. Its face was some kind of mask, covered in an extremely colorful design, but the creature itself isn't the weirdest part. It's what it was doing. It had its hands point on the ground, and it was literally sucking the color out of the area around it. The orange from the light seeping up its arms. It looked up and saw me, then turned and jumped off into the night, vanishing around the corner. I was too shocked to follow it, and no one else was there to see it. Any idea what it was? Not my story. Something a Native American guy posted a while ago. It's some of the creepiest shit I've ever heard. My dad picks me up from school in his pickup truck after he got off work one winter's night. We were driving on a long stretch of road that goes through the woods. It's pitch black outside. The truck radio didn't work, so I was just sitting, staring straight out at the road, getting hypnotized by the passing trees. Suddenly started to get an intense sensation that something is watching me through the window to my right. I started to turn my head to see what it was when my dad yells, "Don't look!" Immediately start to hear tapping on the window right next to my face. Heart stops. Only time I ever saw fear on my dad's face. He started to pray loudly in Navajo. Stare straight ahead, heart pounding, not daring to look out the window. Suddenly the truck dips as the weight falls onto the bed. Whatever the fuck this thing is in the back right behind my head. Start to hear tapping on the window behind me. My father makes me look at him as he continues to pray. Close my eyes tight and wish for it to be over. After the few endless minutes, the truck dips again and the tapping stops. My father says tomorrow we will ask your grandfather to say a prayer so the evil will forget our faces. English to Navajo equivalent. Drive home and lie awake in the bed all night. Father and I never talk about it again. Creepy deep web stories. I have a few if y'all like this one. I'll post more. Be 2 years ago. Dicking around with Polish friend. Head on to Hidden Wiki, Anon-chan, etc. On Anon-chan, some dude posted a link in some Cyrillic script with lots of exclamation points. Luckily enough, my buddy reads Russian. Translates it. It's up again, hurry. Fuck it, why not? Click the link. Here's what we saw. 3 dudes in military uniforms, shown only from the neck down, speaking excitedly in super high pitch / nervously in Russian. Friend reads Russian better than he speaks it, but he catches a few phrases. Basically, these guys are scared and excited. They're getting another one, etc. Eventually it becomes clear that they're out on the ice in some random ass lake in Siberia, ice fishing. After a few minutes of nervous chatter, fucking assault rifles start going off. Camera swings around wildly, eventually focusing on a poorly lit hole in the ice. Gurgling and splashing noises coming from it. These dudes and others are just straight pumping bursts down the hole. Eventually, after another few minutes, these dudes use a long hooked poles to dig around and then heave something up. Shit you not. 20-foot-long fish-like snake-looking fucker. At least 3.5 feet in diameter. I'd say it was an anaconda, but it was brown. And it had really nasty, flabby fins that gripped around and stretched out, full of sea ice and holes and shit. Big black eyes, mouth full of the gnarliest teeth I've ever seen. Huge air sacs on the underside. Looked like a lungfish or some shit. Video cuts to a series of photos of the thing, better lit than the video. Presumably because they're shot with flash. Mottled brown skin with plenty of blood smeared all over it, from the bullets scraping the sides of the hole they pulled it out of. One of the pictures showed what I'm guessing was contents of its stomach. And there was all sorts of crazy shit in there. Don't go swimming in Russia. My grandpa would never go in his attic, would never tell us why. Me and siblings grew up not really questioning it. All of us just knew that Pop wouldn't go in the attic. Whenever he needed something from it, we'd go get it for him. Totally normal attic. Never got any spooky vibes from it. Years later, Grandpa dies. Died peacefully in his sleep. I go stay with my grandma to keep her company. One night we're up late talking about old memories. I bring up the attic in a story. Grandma gets really quiet. Ask if anyone ever talked to me about why he wouldn't go up there. Nope.jpg. She tells me that when they first moved into the house, Pop couldn't sleep. He said something about the house just didn't feel right. He paced all night like he was crazy. Went over every inch of the house with a fine-tooth comb. Grandma is really worried but doesn't say anything. One night he goes up into the attic. She hears him start screaming. She sprints up to the attic and finds him curled up in a ball. He's sobbing. Grandma asks him what happened. He looks up to her and tells her he figured it out. He points to where the eaves of the roof narrow down towards the far end. She looks. There's nothing there. Then she looks closer and sees something she can't really describe or explain. All she could compare it to was origami. It was like space was folding up on itself. The angles were all wrong. She said when she looked at it, she could feel herself going crazy, like something inside her was melting. She drags Pop down the stairs and puts him to bed. He sleeps for 2 days. When he wakes up, he says he'll never go up into the attic again as long as he lives. Never says another word about it. Ignores Grandma when she brings it up. Grandma goes quiet and I don't say anything. We moved on to other stuff and she hasn't brought it up again since. Turns out, most of my family knows. That part of the attic has always been blocked with a huge bureau. Now I know why. I go for a walk almost every day at this park by my house. Done it for years. There's a bayou that runs along a portion of the track. Across the bayou are these apartments for lower income folks. Working class, but started to see shadier characters there over the years. A couple of years back, I began to find dead animals off the side of the track near the bayou by the apartments. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, but after the first two, I started to take pictures because I realized they were odd. I only have one, by the way, if you want to see it. The animals were usually squirrels and frogs, and they were always the same. Eyes apparently removed, might have been eaten though, and grass shoved down their throats. Weird symbols, always spray painted nearby. Never connected this to the shady characters I started seeing until one day I took a different route into town because I stopped for gas, so I cut through a little neighborhood I never drove through. neighborhood is very secluded because it's maze-like and in a bad part of town. Surprised to find a dead dog off the side of the road. No eyes. Looks like grass sticking out of its throat. The stop sign is totally painted over in black. Same symbols that I always saw next to the dead frogs/squirrels is painted over it. Across from it is a giant wooden fence. Same symbol spray painted over that as well. Spot dead frogs and squirrels in random spots as I drive. Nope, the fuck out of there. Any ideas about this? Pretty sure it's gang activity, but part of me wonders if it isn't some fucking cult taking over my town. I used to know what you might call that kid in middle school. He always smelled like he shit himself and wore the same clothes for weeks on end. That is, his wardrobe consisted exclusively of real run-of-the-mill generic pajamas. The kind where it's a completely solid color. The shirt buttons up and has a pocket for some reason, and there's a matching pair of pants. He wore that to school, and he wouldn't take the fuckers off until they were fucking made of stains and smelled so bad that he actually noticed. He was your typical chubby, long-haired, greasy neckbeard, except it was the 7th grade and he couldn't grow facial hair. Actually, that's not entirely true. He grew a really fucking weird thin mustache that was composed of only the barest number of hairs, but his upper lip always looked wet, so you couldn't help but notice that it was there. Anyways, he liked to bill himself as a video programmer. The truth was he could only program terrible ass text adventures in Visual Basic. And it was a damn miracle if they last more than 3 minutes and weren't easy as shit. He brought these fucking retarded games into school every other week, burned to blank CD-ROMs, and he'd ask everyone to play them in the computer lab. They were always really retarded, your completely predictable wake up in a dark cell or an alien spaceship or in a forest kind of deal, except for one he brought in that was different. That's not to say it was actually good, or even really an actual fucking game, to be frank. Just that it stood out among his other releases. This one he called Happy Mommy, and I'm the sorry sack of shit he insisted play it. It started out in the usual command prompt window his games always had, with the pointless ass beginning text asking me to type go to begin the game, except this time when I typed go, it didn't start out in typical text adventure style telling me I woke up somewhere and there's a useful item in the room in 4 directions. This time it started out saying happy, happy mommy, 1 day gone. Just like that, in all lowercase. As was standard fare in this fucking weirdo's dumbass games, I wasn't really sure what the fuck to do at this point, so I asked him and he told me to type in mommy. So that's what I did and it returned. Happy, happy, mommy 2 day gone. Again, just like that, the S missing after day and everything. I didn't really know what else to do, so I typed in mommy again. This time I got happy, happy, mommy 3 day gone. Now, I tried to type mommy again, but it didn't work this time. So I asked him what the hell I'm supposed to do now, and he said to type feel good. So I did, and I got happy, happy, mommy 4 day gone. Happy mommy feel good. Happy mommy feel good. And then it just closed itself. I went on with the rest of my day completely fucking confused at what the shit he made me play. He came to school the next day, and that is the last time I ever saw him. Really spooky ending, I guess. The whole class was obviously wondering what happened to him, and all the teachers made it seem real mysterious and creepy because they were real insistent that we didn't talk fucking about it. No one found out what the hell happened for the rest of our entire school. From 8th grade to high school graduation, outside of the obvious bullshit rumors. Years later, long after I was a grown adult, I came back into contact with one of my middle school teachers and we chatted up a bit about the good old days and all the retarded assholes that went to my middle school. I guess because I was an adult, he felt more comfortable around me, even if he was still way older than me. So I asked him what the hell ever happened to that kid. Now, this next part I swear to God is not made up. Apparently, over the week before he disappeared, this kid's mom had fucking hanged herself. And since he was an only child and she was raising him on her own, and no one in their neighborhood really knew them, no one fucking knew about it. And the kid just kept going to school and coming home to her corpse for 5 days before someone took notice of this and looked into it. I was never actually told what happened to him after Child Protective Services took him away, and I'm not sure anyone knows. B19, driving home from girlfriend's house on a lonely back roads. See dude on roadside ahead, yellow shirt and white pants, baseball uniform. Same colors as my old Little League team. Get a little closer, slow down a little, recognize the dude. Dude died in a car wreck 2 months earlier. Just standing there, staring into the distance. Freak out and speed back up. Check rear view, gone. Look back, still there. Standing in the road now, facing me. Look ahead, back again, gone. Once I got home and calmed down, I realized that I was seeing him as a combination of my old memories. How he'd last look and how I best remembered him. We weren't good friends, and most of my memories of him were from Little League. And yes, I later learned that where I saw him was where he died. Worked boring pizza jobs and a warehouse job, top wage keck in the city. Late at night driving to a delivery one night and get cut off by a massive Wendigo-looking creature with arms and legs extended as hell and the body mass 3 times the size of the moose. Then the images draw, but you can clearly tell it was The Walking Dead and smelled horrible. Panic and drive fast to the delivery and stay in my car for nearly 5 minutes before even attempting to get out of the car. Walked up to the door with piss stains on my pants, and got right back into the car and went home for the night. Trekking in the woods up at my uncle's cabin in northern PA. Dicking around in the woods early in the afternoon with a high-point carbine. Start to get real deep in the woods to a spot I'm unfamiliar with. Come across a strange concrete pond in the middle of the woods, miles from the nearest trail. It's filled with this murky brown water. I'd liken it to mixing coffee and milk, but whiter than it was brown. Water is perfectly still despite being slightly windy, like not even a damn ripple. Suddenly realize everything around me is silent. No wildlife, not even the wind through the trees. Start to get unnerved by how bizarre a concrete structure in the middle of the woods with the nearest road a good 2-hour hike. Disregard strange feeling and continue walking around it. Looks almost like a swimming pool with those curved pipe ladders sticking out of one of the sides. More like the ladder leading down into a sewer. Get closer to it and suddenly hear loud whispering coming from the direction of the middle of the water. Not loud enough to determine individual words, but definitely loud enough to know it was talking. Have the worst feeling something is about to come crawling out of the water, so I just take off sprinting back the way I came. I reach the trail and head back to the cabin. Tell my uncle about it. Tomorrow, we go back to the exact spot I left the trail and search for 2 hours in the direction I came from and found nothing. That was the worst part. That place should have fucking been there, but we searched and searched but couldn't find anything. This was in fall too, so everything nearby, with the exception of the pine trees, were pretty much dead. I remember it being fall because there was so many brown leaves all over the ground and leading up to the edge of the water. It was very cold and very damp. Be me, 2019. Find drain tunnel near friend's house. Try to explore. Get in maybe 100 feet before it's pitch black. Go to friend's house. Hey bro, wanna come explore this cool drain with me? Sorry, Anon. I'm scared by this kind of thing. You can have my headlamp, though. Thanks, bro. See ya. Return to tunnel. Sun is setting. Head inside. Observe surroundings. The deeper into the tunnel, the older the graffiti on the walls. Mostly from the 70s and having to do with weed and sex. My face when boomers got high and fucked where I'm standing. Try to ignore that fact and keep moving. Walk for 10 more minutes. Long fucking tunnel.png. Notice walls have been barren for the past 3 minutes. Keep walking. More graffiti comes into view. It looks pretty creepy. Probably tagged by some edgy kids 30 years ago to scare people. Don't think too much of it. Been walking for 30 minutes now, should probably head back. Walk back. Get to a wall. The wall is blocking what would have been the entrance/exit. Made of concrete. Looks like it's been there for decades. No possible way I could have made a wrong turn. It's all one tube. Trapped in the tunnel. Have to head back down to find a way out. Son of a bitch.jpg. Turn around, start walking. Walk until the occult symbols again. Hear something behind me. Pick related. Hear multiple appendages/legs splashing around. Clear, light breathing coming from it. Take picture because I had my phone out trying to get service. It blinks after I take the picture. Lurches forward. Do a 180 and make tracks. Sprint for a good 10 minutes. Muscles dying, lungs burning. Throat dry as the Sahara. Eventually see outlet. Sweetfreedom.move. Escape the tunnel. Collapses into a puddle of stagnant water and tadpoles. Walk to friend's house. Cold, wet, and tired. Never go back. Reverse image search. Multiple reverse image search sites. No hits. July 25th, 2020. Ljubljana. Having a drink with wife and friends by the river near the Dragon Bridge. At around 11 p.m. we decide to return home. Stop by the traffic lights right by the Dragon Bridge. Wife, who's a hardcore scully in the relationship, tells me, Anon, what are those lights? Immediately, I look up, as well maybe 9 other people waiting to cross the road. 2 large, wobbling white lights coming from the city castle. They shine a very bright cone of white light randomly in all directions as they float by. Altitude of about 100 to 150 meters. Completely silent. No wind or noise. Everybody at the crossing is dumbfounded by these, including me. Tell myself I'm looking at a UFO right now. Damn yes. The light changes to green and I step out of the feeling of awe. Take out my phone, shitty Pixel 2, and I start recording maybe 10 to 15 seconds after they pass over us. The lights are already flying over some buildings, so I try to follow the road home while finding a crack between the buildings to record them. Look back and everybody's still looking out for them at the crossing. Cycle down the road parallel to the river while recording. People by the river are standing up looking at the lights as they go up and up. They eventually fly higher than a passenger plane that passes by and disappear into the sky. Vid related. My buddy who's into drones says they're probably drones, but really? 11 p.m. During the pandemic, Ljubljana, of all places. Had it been fucking Shanghai or Berlin? Maybe, but not this town. Plus a drone that could shine lights so bright like that. Imagine stadium lights, Desu. Would have to be expensive. And fly it up to space? A few weeks ago, my wife saw similar lights flying around a nuclear reactor. While she was driving in the evening, 9 p.m. Could have been aircraft since there's an airfield nearby, and she agrees. But they moved very quickly in all directions, unlike helicopters, which we see from our balcony every day when they land at the hospital. Me and little brother are going home from our cousin's house. It's 11, alone on the street. Our house is 15 minutes. Feel kinda paranoid. Suddenly, we notice this woman. Feel watched and stalked. Think to myself, hey, maybe it's just some random woman walking to her home. To be sure, me and my brother change to the other sidewalk. She changes the sidewalk too. Change the sidewalk again. She does too. Okay, she is definitely following us. Fast walk to a side street. We are out of sight from that woman. Begin running to our home. We made it safely. On Metro, heading home one night after watching a movie at a friend's house. It's a weekday night on a quiet station, so there's literally basically nobody on the train. Few stops after the one I get on, this lanky guy with a scruffy beard and really cracked out vibe gets on and sits down in the same carriage as me, just fidgeting, rubbing his face, murmuring, classic druggy shit. Already uncomfortable, because I have a few more stops, but he's probably harmless. Dude stands up and starts walking up and down the carriage, then pulls out a pocket knife and starts getting louder. Doesn't even really talk to me or acknowledge me, just waving his knife around and talking to himself. Decide, fuck it. I'm bolting at the next stop. Doors open, and I jump straight off while he's not looking. He follows me. Oh fuck no, oh fuck no, oh fuck no. Turn a corner and there's 2 police officers. Before I can say anything, the fucker comes running around the corner with his knife. Officers proceed to tactically beat the shit out of him and cuff him. And later on that night, I fell down the stairs in my house. Weird night. The previous occupant of my family home committed suicide in the back bedroom. I'm positive his ghost haunts the place, but thankfully he seems to be pretty peaceful. Be me, little kid in the late 80s and early 90s. My bedroom is the one where Oliver shot himself. Absolutely terrified of the closet in the corner for no apparent reason. Never saw anything there, but doors opened or closed. It always felt like something was watching me. Found out just a few years ago that the bullet impacted in the wall inside the closet when Oliver killed himself. Nobody ever dug it out, just patched and painted over it. Be me, later on in life, regularly use big TV in living room. Only one awake at night. Dead silent out in the woods. Aside from the sound and headphones, every night I see it. Reflections in the screen, only for a moment. Like someone walking across the doorway and backlit by the kitchen light. No pattern to it, but whenever I turn to look, the shadow is gone. Working in machine shop in basement, random tools get moved from where they should be. Toolbox drawers open when I'm not looking. Whenever I say, damn it Oliver, or the like, happenings stop for a while. Starts right back up within hours though. So far he hasn't done anything violent. No full apparitions or poltergeist shit. I guess he just likes to play pranks to stave off boredom. Sorry, it isn't pants-shittingly scary, but I guess most ghosts don't go crazy for a while. I've told this story on Out, and it's probably the one that bugs me the most. I'll put it in Greentext. Out. Turkey hunting in Colorado. There's a primo spot I've been hunting since I was a teen. My dad hunted it before I was even born, too. Basically, if you follow the lower elevation road, you'll eventually come across a large bend. There's a ravine on the right side that takes you up on top of a flat hill. On the left side, there's a flat patch where you can pull off, head up ravine onto flat, then move down from the other side onto bench. There's a thick oak brush below, but if you follow the bench for a ways, you come across a nice flat glade with quackies and a little pond. If you go in there during late archery season, you can sometimes find bull elk using it as a wallow, since the pond kind of dries up. Come down off the bench at the glade, head east, and eventually hit the canyon rim. Canyon rim is primo turkey hunting. If you get there sunrise/sunset, because turkeys like to roost along the rim for whatever reason. I've pulled plenty of gobblers out of that bitch. I love it. Anyways, on this day I followed the usual path, except when I left the glade I entered more oak brush, which isn't normal. It's normally just open quackies, then back to pinyons as you approach the rim. Whatever, keep walking, maybe I just misremembered. Except now, I'm coming on the glade again. Keep walking, more oak scrub. Glade again? Figure somehow I'm going in circles, even though I know this area like the back of my hand. Sun is up, so going to the rim at this point is semi-pointless. Pop a squat on a stump, eat a sandwich for brekkie, and listen to see if I hear anything. Pastrami plus Havarti. Stone ground mustard, mayo, peppercini, tomato on wheat. Shit's to die for. Owl hooting to the south, driving the gobblers at the rim nuts. Finished sandwich and decide I'm gonna get closer to the canyon rim since that owl is keeping them fairly stationary. Same shit as before. Oak scrub and glade, even though the sun is in front of me the entire time. Check watch, it's now 11 a.m. Somehow I lost 4 hours in a single direction trip. Fuck it, I'm out. Get up on the bench and start heading out. Oak scrub below me, then glades, even though sun is behind me the whole time. No fucking way. Check watch, it's 2 p.m. Bullshit. Following the sun now, even if I'm lost. If I follow the sun, I'll reach civilization at some point because town is west. Finally make it to my car, it's 7 p.m. I don't know what happened. Like I said, I've hunted that spot since I was old enough to hunt, and I've hunted it since. Just some weird stalker anomaly type shit. I was stuck in some shitty time/area loop for a whole fucking day. One more sighting/experience, whatever you want to call it. Not related to the previous two, but happened in the same area. As said before, house is at the edge of hundreds of acres of town forest. Used to be farmland, but nature reclaimed after 1830. Edge of our property was an old stone wall, used for livestock of some sort. Many fond memories of exploring the woods in day and night, LARPing with airsoft guns, fantasy roleplay with sticks, etc. Quality childhood.dnd. Summer vacation. Outside playing. Start to walk down the rock wall towards the pond in our neighborhood. Only a quarter-mile away, can still see our house through the trees. What happens next took place in about 15 seconds real time. Walking, not really paying attention, forest gets silent, and I smell something sweet, sort of like lavender, but with something else I've never been able to identify. World seemed dipped in a light sepia hue. 3 massive, light brown dog-shaped things dash in front of me, right over the rock wall, like they jumped over it, directly in front of me. As soon as they cleared the wall, the world returned to normal. Smell gone, no animals visible anywhere. Book at Mach 10 to the house and run inside freaking out. Never had any explanation, and haven't had anything major happen since. Not terribly scary or life-threatening, but these 3 experiences have stuck with me. And I'm always conscious of the power of the woods and things we cannot see or understand. Parents die in a car wreck. A week or so later, I'm lying in bed, crying myself to sleep as usual. Hear a creak on the floor outside my room, and giggling. My dog perks up and starts growling like crazy. My mom slowly leans around the corner of the door. She looks different, and her movements are all wrong, jerky and twitchy. Go to sleep, Anon. It'll all be better soon. It's her voice, but sounds clotted somehow. My blood is ice water. My dog is whimpering and cowering now. Mom jerks back around the door. Another creak. My dad leans around the corner. It's okay, son. We're gonna be family again soon. Just fall asleep. And giggles. Like my mom, his movements are all spastic and fucked up. His face, a grinning rictus. He jerks his head back out of sight. My heart is pounding, quickly and quietly as I can. I grab my phone and dial 911 to report a home invasion at my address. I can hear movement and that insane giggling from the hallway. I'm laying there with tears rolling down my face from fear. I don't know how long it was until I saw flashing lights outside the house and muffled shouts. Hurried movements in the hallway. Something crashes to the ground. Muffled shouts from downstairs as the cops come through the front door. Thank you, God. They search my house, and afterwards a cop approaches me, white as a sheet. Anon, it's hard to tell you this, but we found your parents' faces on the ground outside. That was almost 10 years ago. They never found the sick fucks that did it, and I still have nightmares. Old video games tend to be a source of weird shit. PC titles, obviously, but even unlicensed cartridge games were fairly easy to do on a lark, as I'm sure some people remember firsthand and others have heard. I like to collect these weird games when I can. Most of them are just shitty shit made by mongoloids, but some are funny or even creepy. Take Goat Jump. I got it from a pawn shop owner that I knew who knows I buy old games. I don't know if Goat Jump is the actual name because the original label had been peeled off, and a small one affixed with just those 2 words. Anyway, Goat Jump is an apparently unlicensed NES game. Pop it into your NES, starts right up. No credits, no start screen, no explanation. Graphics consist of a scrolling ranch/prairie, with the player being a really shittily rendered small cowboy. The goats don't really look like goats, but I guess they don't look like anything else either. A makes you jump, while B doesn't do anything. Pressing start will pause the game. The screen is filled with mostly the word stop in white block letters. Pressing select will make your character stop moving, and a loud buzzing sound will play. Music is low-quality pseudo-western beeps. Walking to a goat causes the same buzz to emit as if you'd pressed select, and the screen switches to black with the word lose filling the screen. The game has to be manually reset from there. Gameplay consists of you jumping over goats. Your apparent reward for this is 1 point per goat, while scroll speed and goat numbers slowly increase. Around the 15-minute mark, what can I say, I'm tenacious, things start getting strange. The music is occasionally interrupted with loud beeps or scratching tones out of sync with the music. The goat sprites begin to get varied, with color errors and such. Some are really just incoherent masses of colored pixels. Your cowboy sprite kind of flips back and forth, so it looks like he's moonwalking. This gets steadily more severe, and the terrain is eventually affected too. Gray sky, brown trees, and red pixels, which I assume are supposed to be blood. By this point, the music is incoherent screeching and beeping with no tune. Your sprite is gliding along on his back, and the goat sprites are half sunken into the terrain. You come to the end of your journey, around the halfway mark, where you enter your first and only building, rendered shittily in gray brick. From there, your sprite glides into some sort of thrashing machine, or something, and a shitty scream plays. You get 100,000 points. A black screen with "You won" pops up, with a really fucked up goat sprite dancing between the words. Again, the game has to be manually reset. Graphical and sound glitches appear earlier or randomly in subsequent playthroughs. Goats are replaced with your cowboy sprites lying on his back, with blood on it, and occasionally missing pieces. Randomly, your cowboy is replaced with a goat, and bafflingly, a large boot. Like I said, weird. I've never found any information on Goat Jump anywhere. I assume it was a joke or a personal project or something. You guys all know that Adult Swim's sign-off bumper, "The Dawn is your enemy." There's a reason they don't show it anymore. The last day the bump was used as a sign-off, instead of a normal running time of 9 seconds, it ran for an extended period of time until the automated surface was overtaken by manual operation. We all know the sound that shook our childhoods, or teen years. The resonating metal, the rumbles, and the sound of metal scraping against metal. Feel free to look it up if you're a bit rusty. Now, when the audio cut, it doesn't sound complete. It's not finished, not over. The producers at AS/CN were purposely cutting off the rest of the sound, and for good reason. The rest that followed was the exact reason why you'll never see this bumper again on the air. Once again, it's supposed to only run for about 9 seconds, and this is a rough transcript of the usual audio. Resonating metal, followed by a rumble, followed by a scraping, metal, and another rumble, end bumper. So what could you put together with that? Nothing rings a bell, right? Exactly. This part they used is utilized effectively to scare off children that have tuned in to Adult Swim. It even gives adults goosebumps because it's that good. It's closely rivaled with the hammer clinks in the Williams Street production card in Nightmare Fuel. Getting back on topic, usually a Cartoon Network employee would enter the control room left by an Adult Swim crew member and take over for the day. It wasn't quite the case that day, however. The usual man scheduled to cue the sign-on, such and such, programming for CN for some reason did not start up the day schedule. No one knows if he did this purposely and whether or not his contract was terminated. This was the least of problems CN had at the time. What followed the common 9 seconds was an extended 2-minute broadcast of some of the most horrifying audio ever heard on public television. The metal continued to resonate, and the scraping continued. Slowly, an uncontrollable sobbing came clear. Not one person was crying, but a multitude of people were screaming and yelling, As the metal scraped, the scream grew louder. The sound was getting louder in general. Soon you could hear the slicing of flesh, the grinding of bones, and the guttural death rattles of people dying. All across the United States, millions of children and adults were being exposed to what sounded like a barbaric mass murder. People were calling in all across the country, crying or screaming or begging for it to be turned off. It couldn't be. Someone hooked up the bump to be a rogue broadcast, which disabled the ability to change channels. Anyone tuned in would see it on every single channel for a grueling 2 minutes. The sounds of over 100 people being tortured to death played on. People assume the control room was finally taken back, and the bump was shut down, ending a traumatic experience no one could undoubtedly forget. Word is that the last few moments, as the resonating metal grew into an unbearable volume, the channel showed the peaking sun winking at the viewer just before the channel cut to bars and tones. How was Cartoon Network going to cover this up? No one knows their exact tactic to this day. Multiple theories have been thought of, ranging from preemptive cease and desist to possible news articles to subliminal viewer hypnosis over the following weeks. While all public evidence does not officially exist, Cartoon Network officials do acknowledge a hijacking of the channel's frequency on the day, but go into no further detail. Word is, however, that somewhere hidden in an onion site, accessible only via Tor, is a recording of the full bump. Red Pill Me on CERN and the God Particle. It is a front for a time machine research project using Kerr black holes that has been going on for decades. Continuation of Operation Paperclip and the underlying Nazi research into space and metaphysics. I used to work for CERN, but I would eat people's lunch during breaks, so I got fired after being caught after 7 months. Great benefits, that place. They gave me the movie The Mist on DVD first week there. Probably just racing bicycles on shrooms all day to hardstyle. They're gonna fire up the LHC for Run 3 in March/April. They'll cause time to reset. You truly are a dumb fuck, huh? I have 2 God particles in my possession. I snuck them before getting fired. Who's the retoid now? How would that happen? Would some of us experience it? Interdimensional demons disguised as aliens. Cryptocurrencies working to calculate, if possible, millions of VGAs working for one bigger and somber purpose. Good conspiracy theory material to freak out schizos. Demons waiting anxiously to the CERN portal to open so they can have free access to our dimension and then can slaughter humans freely. There's a collage shop here in town, owned by a Czech family. They serve badass traditional Czech collages, pick related. Buy an assortment. Remember the fairies love bread and cheese and milk. Take a cream cheese collage and leave it out in the garden. Return the next morning, collage is half eaten. Next to it is a hand-scrawled note. This shit nasty. Lol. Next day I wake up with sores all over my body. The fairies strike again, and that's how I learned that the Fae have pleb tastes in food, and that one must under no circumstances give them cause for offense. 2 years ago, browsing X, ask about how to possibly attract Fae spirits. Anons tell me that the Fae like nice gardens. They just like gifts of butter and milk. So I cultivate a little garden, mainly flowers, but also some veggies. Keep it very neat. Always leave out a little saucer either with butter or milk. Even thank the fairies with a little prayer every day. Sometimes I feel watched when I'm working in the garden. Could be my imagination, whatever. Then one night it begins to storm. Severe winds. I'm worried my garden will get destroyed. Wake up the next day. The wind from the storm knocked over trees and power lines. There are huge tree branches in the middle of the road. My backyard is a total fucking wreck. Debris, leaves, sticks everywhere. Except for my garden. Looks totally untouched and pristine. No debris in it whatsoever. I also grew the biggest cucumbers and peppers that I've ever grown in that garden. I stopped doing the milk and butter thing, though, because I started thinking it was fake. Should have kept up with it. Walking home from friend's house, the one across the woods. Took the road 'cause don't have to go through the woods. Lily back road that winds through the hills. Big related. Longer than walking through the woods, but doesn't require trespassing. Using a walkie-talkie to talk to my mom because children didn't get cell phones back then. The signal was really shitty and came in and out. Mom is mid-sentence when she cuts off. Deep horrifying voice comes in. My mind and my bowels are both simultaneously evacuated. Threatening as fuck. Cry like a bitch to my mom. She didn't even hear the voice. Ask her to come pick me up. She sends stepdad out on the four-wheeler. He's pissed when he gets there, and I cry the whole time I'm waiting for him. Literally could not tell you what the voice said. I know it said something directly to me, but it's been so long. It was so traumatizing to my tiny underdeveloped brain that I cannot remember any of the words. Only that it was very masculine/gravelly voice, maybe even demonic, and that I took whatever it said as a threat. My best guess is something about the lines of, I'm gonna come find you, / I know where you are, and I'm gonna kill you / gut you. Hell, I might have even used my actual name, thinking back on it, as hard as I can. I've always rationalized that it was someone listening in on the same frequency, deciding it would be really funny to fuck with me, but no idea why my mom wouldn't have heard it. I know it wasn't my stepdad, though, 'cause he's never been that kind of guy. I once stayed in a relatively remote cabin with my parents on a Georgian mountain. My parents said that they were going to check out a hang gliding spot at the top of the mountain, but I was playing outside and didn't want to go. 5 minutes after they left, I decided I did want to go with them. Being a dumb shit preteen from Florida, I figured I could just walk up the mountain on a random trail behind the cabins and find them. The trail began wide enough, almost a first road cleared and packed earth for easy walking. The path snaked along through the hard woods, winding upwards, but it had no turn, so I wasn't scared of getting lost. Further down the way, the path began to grow narrow. Trees and brushes gathered inward, and the graded and packed earth transitioned into rock and clay. It was little more than a footpath now, heavily wooded on either side. I passed an abandoned wooden barn or shed, an entire structure leaning, brown with age, and partially destroyed. I was curious, but decided not to look around it further, so I continued on. Abruptly, the small footpath opened to a red clay clearing, like a gash in the forest floor, and I'm very confused to find an absolutely pristine condition classic car parked dead center. I don't even give two shits about cars, but this thing was pure perfection. 1960s Dodge Dart, paint job blue as the sky, clean enough to reflect the clouds, bumper rims gleaming spotless, cream canvas top, and inside I saw a black vinyl bench seat, and a man in the driver's seat. The area is small, friendly, southern hospitality type town, so I'm not scared. More in awe of how amazing this car is. I look at the man and smile, realizing I have probably wandered into someone's property. The man is dressed kind of funny, a dated black suit and fedora hat with dark sunglasses. Again, though, it's kind of a podunk place where people are behind on fashion, so I pay this no mind. I smile and wave, and he smiles and waves back. I approach the man to engage in some casual, "Sorry, I'm lost, nice car." But as I step towards the car, I hear something large rushing through the leaves in the woods behind me. I turn and see absolutely nothing. Shrugging it off, I turn back to the car and the man, but it's not the same. The car is beyond disrepair, absolutely rotted away by the elements. Not a speck of paint remains on it. The entire thing is completely brown and rusted down to the bumpers and rims that 2 seconds ago reflected the entire forest. The canvas top, mildewed and torn open, bench seat rotted to shreds, exposing rusted springs and dirty foam. I look around to see there is no road to the clearing, no possible way the car could have got here. The man is nowhere to be seen. Needless to say, I'm pretty spooked. The forest is eerily quiet, suddenly, devoid of birds and cicada song. I'm truly alone. I decide I've been walking long enough to be closer to the mountain top, where my parents are, than the cabin, so I continue forward, now at a hurried walk. As I continue, I pass strange rusted machinery, equipment, something that looks like a giant metal funnel, oil drums, and other metal scraps. The only sound I heard besides my own footsteps was the buzzing of flies. 1 or 2 at first. I pick up my pace, desperate to find my way to my parents. As I continue deeper, the buzzing is louder than my footsteps. All I can hear, but I see no flies. I stop in my tracks as I smell something very dead. The smell of rotting flesh is overpowering. I gag and try not to vomit, still bombarded by the droning buzz of flies. I feel dizzy suddenly. I look around and see no animal corpses or flies anywhere. Fear hits me like never before, and I run back the way I came at full speed, never stopping until I reach the cabin. When my parents and brother arrive, it's dark out. I tell them what happened, and they all brush it off. I tell them I will take them there tomorrow. The next day, I take them on the same path. There is only one path with no turns. It's wide and leveled and makes a circle. We circle 3 times before everyone writes me off as being imaginative. The path never narrows. We never find the old shed or clearing. I continue circling after everyone has given up. I never find that clearing again. I can't explain it. I don't know what happened, but I promise you, it was real. Charlie Noonan's last interview. Charlie Noonan was an amateur folklorist who traveled through the South and Southwestern United States during the early years of the 20th century, collecting tall tales and stories of the supernatural. According to his wife, Ellie, Charlie was told a story one day by an Oklahoman farmer about a strange woman who lived alone on an isolated property in the Panhandle. The farmer claimed the woman was not a woman at all, but something else, something that hid its true nature beneath a headscarf, and was never seen without a large dog by its side. Noonan was apparently intrigued enough to try searching for the woman during one of his research road trips. He was never seen again. Ellie Noonan was later contacted by a Tulsa pawnbroker who remembered reading about her husband's disappearance in the papers. After finding his name engraved on a camera sold to him by an itinerant, the pawnbroker returned the camera, and Mrs. Noonan had the film inside developed in the hopes of finding a clue as to his whereabouts. This was the only photo on the roll. Unfortunately, neither the location of the property nor the name of the farmer who told him the story was recorded in Noonan's notes. Be me, 17. Uncle is letting me stay at his old farm for the weekend, just outside of this small town, relatively quiet and lonely place. Huge open fields surrounded by woods. There's a grain silo and the barn with a few animals, chickens, 2 turkeys, a goat, even a peacock somehow. He drives into the city for the weekend to sleep with this girl he's into. Add-on? I'm leaving you the place. Just make sure to feed the animals once a day, and if you drink all the beer, pay for it. Kinda winks at me. CoolUncle.jpg. Of course, invite friends, and some girls over for drinking and romantic country walks. Also GoldenEye, because fuck yeah. There's me, Eric, Robert, and Jeremy, along with Ellie, Diane, and Jessica. Super into Diane. 8 out of 10 Hispanic Asian chick. Weirdest boner. So we start drinking, messing around in the garage. I tell everyone we should go to the barn and get up at the top area and fuck around. We get up there, Bring some food and some beer. Start talking. Get in a big circle. Diane sits right next to me. Boneralert.avi. Everything's normal at first. We start sharing ghost stories. She starts telling us about La Llorona or whatnot. Crying ghost lady. Mildly spoopy. But she has a cute little mouse voice, so it loses atmosphere. Her head kind of falls on my shoulder. There's one of those hanging workman's lamp things lighting up the barn. I don't remember what they're called right now. Everyone's kind of silent, just thinking, sipping at their beer or murmuring. I start to smell this disgusting smell like rotten meat dipped in perfume. It was sick but sweet. I push it off as dead mice or something stupid. I was kind of an idiot at 17. Put my arm around Diane, ask if anyone wants more beer. Offer to go back to the house to get it. Sure, one of my friends, probably Robert. Get up, brush myself off, and head for the ladder to get down. The fucking ladder is missing. Too annoyed to be scared, turn and ask who messed with the ladder. Everyone looks genuinely mystified at the missing ladder. Shrug. Decide it probably fell down and I can't see it. Figure I'll just drop through the hole, brace myself for the drop, and put the ladder back up on the way back. I get to the edge of the hole, smell that gross fucking smell again, and almost stop, but don't want to look like a pussy. Drop my feet through the hole, start to lower myself down, when I feel something wet smack against my exposed ankle. Push myself back up, so fucking fast, with the bitchiest yelp I've ever made or heard, scrambling away from the hole. What's up? Probably fucking Robert again, wasn't in the mood. Either the turkeys have super long wet necks now, or there's something down there that grabbed my leg. Very funny, Anon.bmp. I'm fucking serious, assholes. I kick my leg out to show them where the guy, or whatever, touched me. There's this brownish reddish goop on my ankle. It's sticky and smells like that rotted meat put on display at the department store from before. What is that, Anon? One of the girls ask. I have no idea, so I shake my head. Tell them I'm gonna chill up here for a bit, and someone else can head down if they want. Eric gets up to take a look, but is obviously frightened as fuck, like he should be. That smell is hanging around, thick and cloying. He looks down the hole to the ground level and backs away slowly. And that's when we hear it. Everyone freezes. Ellie is all over Eric now. Everyone is too afraid to move. The voice was flat and slow, like some sort of fucking mongoloid trying to figure out how to into woods. He keeps repeating it, the sound slowly changing over time. We're huddling up together. Everyone's here, so we know there's no one fucking with us, and my uncle doesn't have any neighbors for miles. Who fucked with the ladder? Everyone turns to look at me. That was my fucking voice, what the fuck? Shake my head vigorously and realize the creature was practicing with my voice, and is now saying other things in my voice, catching on to the speech way more quickly than before. None of us have cell phones because this is the late-ish 90s, so we couldn't really call the cops or anything. We're all just kind of huddled up together, trying not to talk because hearing it say things we have already said is extremely disconcerting. Silently thankful it was stupid enough to remove the ladder. The smell starts to fade slowly, and I figure it's gone by the time the stench is gone. Get balls of steel out of nowhere. Decide we should all drop down and make a break for the house. Everyone sort of agrees. Jeremy and Jess don't want to be left alone, so they end up agreeing. The 8 of us all collect around the hole and take a peek. We don't see anything but some smears of that reddish goop on the floor. Push it to the back of my mind. Decide I'll go first. Drop down. Wave everyone down. We were all sort of uncoordinated and fucked up from what beer we'd had, but thankfully it wasn't much. Everyone's down in a few moments. We grab hands like 5-year-olds and start to walk to the house at a brisk pace, not wanting to draw its attention and not wanting to trample each other like retards. We then hear this wet fucking smack on the concrete floor of the barn. Fuck this, nope, done. Everyone starts to run. barely holding on to each other's hands. My hand slips from Diane's for a moment, but a strong, warm hand grabs it again, and no one calls out like they're lost. All 8 of us return to the house. Wait, 8? Me, Eric, Jeremy, Robert, Diane, Ellie, Jessica. That's it. Everyone seems to realize this and nopes the fuck out. Looking at everyone else, there were only 7 of us again. I wanted to puke when I realized it wasn't Diane's hand I grabbed the second time. But for some reason, it didn't follow us into the house. Maybe it wasn't a fan of late 70s decor. I don't fucking know. We scramble through the living room. I stop and grab my uncle's compound bow and a few arrows from the display cabinet for some reason. As if I'm gonna knock a fucking arrow and kill this fucking X-Files motherfucker, when I haven't even gone hunting in over a year. Everyone piles up into the kitchen. It's raised up and away from the living room, and kinda looks out onto it, where the main door is. I sit and watch over the sink, fingers fucking trembling, barely able to hold the fucking $1,000 bow in my hand. Might as well have been a paperweight. We hear this wet smacking and thudding against the front door, the screen door shaking as well. It's asking in my voice and others now to be let in, slowly stringing together words from other sentences. It has heard to make its own. It stops after a while, and we start to calm down. I go to find the phone. While I'm doing this, I hear this soft tapping on glass. I freeze and spin around. This jerking, twisting amalgamation of flesh, wearing a mix of all of our faces, is tapping almost politely at the sliding glass door of the patio. I lose my shit and I almost go to draw and shoot, but something tells me it can't enter the house without being invited. I inch away, slowly. His eyes are following me up to the kitchen, and it stares at me, just tapping and tapping. We all keep a watch, but it can't really do anything, so it jerks, slithers, shifts away and tries the front door again, and continues until light of the morning. We all said fuck it the next day. I left the bag of feed open for all the animals, and we drove to Robert's house and camped out in the basement for Saturday and Sunday. My uncle acted pretty weird when I brought it up, and moved out 2 months later. We never spoke again. I think he tried to sacrifice me to it or some fucking shit.